What do you get when you combine the J. Stevens Arms Company out of their old school Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts factory, a World War II era 12 gauge side by side, and some Tenite, a compound made partly of wood, partly of plastic? You get an excellent topic for a post pneumonia YouTube video. Let's get started. Mills Serp Garage. What's up? It's been a while. Getting over my illness and getting my voice back, finally. So I just want to tell you guys I appreciate all the support. You guys hanging in there. The activity still going on my channel when I'm down for the count really means a lot to me. I do appreciate it. So what do we have here? We have a Stevens Model 530M. You guys, anyone going to gun shows and going into local gun shops, there's no way to avoid shotguns that look like this. They're everywhere. And amazingly, I never ended up with one of these things. Don't know why. Wasn't really sure what I was ever looking at or where to go with them, or a lot of questions that I didn't have answers to. What brought me to this one was the Tenite. The Tenite stock. We just did the Noble Model 3322 with the Tenite. And when I saw this Tenite, it made me pull it down off the rack. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is my dual trigger side by side right here. I'm buying this thing. They're so cheap too. But there are a lot of dogged ones. You got to watch out. And they sold these things right through the 1900s. So you got all different types of situations, let's just say, So this was my situation. That's all. It was just perfect, So what is the 530M? Let's just break this one down. We'll narrow down on here, and then we'll broaden the scope to explain where this guy actually comes from, a little bit of history. It is a 12 gauge side by side. This particular model, the 530M, this one was made somewhere from 1940 to 1947. It is a true war gun. Where from 40 to 47, I don't know. I can't narrow it down anymore, but with just how it's equipped and what's going on with it and the markings, not date markings, but just the markings, I'm able to narrow it to 40 to 47. And maybe if I got some time, I'll break into how actually I do that. This particular one, no serial number, no date code, no auto ejector, no hammers, no removable chokes. It's got but it does have an annoying auto actuating safety, which I can't stand those things. Promised myself I'd never get a gun that had one of those, but here we are. I'm going to have to overcome it. So what that means is every time you open it and break it to load it and close it, the safety goes on every single time, and you got to keep turning it off. So if you're shooting trap, it's an extra motion where you have to remember to turn the safety off every single time. Full left is a full choke, and that's the rear trigger. Right is a modified choke, and that is the front trigger. Coolest thing about these guys, they don't have that inertia system where there's one trigger, you load both barrels, and then there's like a switch for which barrel fires first. And then when you fire whichever one you had fired first, the recoil sets the trigger again for the second shot. It kind of charges the action again for you. Whereas these guys kind of have like two totally separate charged triggers. So if you want to, you can take this guy, snap caps right here, of course, inert aluminum. These are aluminum rounds. What's going on? Why can't I? Oh, it has to be open. Like, it definitely has to be open, like literally all the way to fit them in there. Very tight. What is going on? Oof. And you can take the safety off. See, I remembered. You can literally get your hand in here, and if you could get two fingers on one on each trigger, you could pull both triggers like that at the same time. They are independent. So that is pretty cool. I've read in books before when I was younger. I remember I had heard, he put both barrels of the shotgun into something, into an animal, into whatever. Like in the literature, I've heard that term. And then when I started to get a little bit older and got into shotguns, I always thought that was kind of silly. I'm like, oh, you can't do both barrels until I learned that there really are shotguns like this that can fire both barrels at the same time. I went for a number of years thinking that was just, artistic license, but this was the kind of shotgun they were talking about, evidently. You know what I mean? So Stevens, let's talk about some Stevens history. Why don't we? So some people, they hear Stevens, right? They think junk. Stevens is weird. You can take a look. Take a look back a few videos back. We got the Stevens Model 520. That's a John Browning design. That thing was made from somewhere from 09 to 15. That's when it was the Stevens Arms and Tool Company. They had gone through a bunch of iterations, but the beginnings, they made solid stuff. That 520 is one of the best shotguns in my stable, and a true John Browning design, a very overlooked John Browning design because he brought that design to Stevens. It's the later guns, like the 73. Take a look back at my videos to the Stevens 73Y. What a absolute trash of a 22. That thing literally fell apart, like as I'm trying to just do a shooting segment for my video with it. Those things are absolutely horrible. The worst, probably the worst gun I've ever done, I've ever had featured on this channel. So you go from the best to the worst. This guy is somewhere in between. It was a period where Stevens took over. So in Stevens was founded in 1864 by a guy named Joshua Stevens. And by 1884, Stephen Arms of Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts, had introduced the 22 long rifle cartridge. So there you go. That's a pretty big thing to put on your resume. They had a wide array of pistols, rifles, shotguns, and by 1902 were claiming to be the largest producers of sporting arms in the world. All right, they were purchased by New England Westinghouse in 1915, and then again by Savage Arms in 1920. Now they continued to produce firearms as a division of Savage. They were a semi-independent subsidiary until 1942. So that's kind of interesting that right around when this gun was made, could have been when they were an independent subsidiary or not. Nothing really changed in 42 except the status, because they made guns in their original Stevens Chicopee Falls facility, not super original, way back in the J. Stevens Arms and Tool Company. I think they had a different factory, but the Chicopee Falls one was from when Savage bought them in 1920. They were in that factory, and Stevens stayed in that factory until 1960. Then that plant was torn down, and manufacturing was moved into other Savage-owned, Savage-specific facilities. So 1960 is really when they lost a lot of their independence, let's say. But 1942 is a pivotal time in how the company was organized. So Savage dropped the Stevens name in 1991, but revived it in 1999, and it's still in use today, believe it or not, for some of its low-cost rifles and shotguns. I believe it was hard to really even come up with that information, but it's I think they're actually still branding stuff that way. But you can't forget that in 1907, Stevens was approached by John Browning with the Model 520. You cannot, that part of history it really stands out in their history and makes them a name to go up on, the Firearms Hall of Fame. This thing became the 520-30 trench gun, which I also have videos up on. You could check out my videos on the 520-30. Come on, the Stevens visible loader, the 85A click clack gun. We got videos of these up there. But you got to check out that 73Y though. Man, what an absolute banana of a gun. So on this guy, you're going to see this number here. There's a lot of talk about this. People say that that's what this thing is. You see there's a 5100 over here, hiding down over here in the corner. And it's not a model 5100, but you're going to hear that. 5100 is it's not a model. It's a type of action. The action is called the 5100 type of action. Where that comes from, let's just get into the specific history of this model quickly. And then we will understand where that, well, maybe we'll understand. This is confusing. So this design began as the Riverside, later called the Springfield, number 315. This was introduced before World War I. And there's a patent here you want to poke around with. This is let me dig it out here. I'm not allowed to show you patents anymore. But this is the G.S. Lewis patent of April 20th, 1915. Patent number is 1136247. So you do a Google search under Google patents for US 1136247. This patent's going to come up. This is the patent that's associated with this design. There's some changes that have to do with something that has to do with the hammers and the hammer springs. And without being able to show the patent drawings and stuff and even other exploded drawings, I'd be afraid to show. YouTube is getting sensitive about showing stuff like that you're showing how to manufacture the firearms. They're stuck on that. So until that starts to calm down a little bit, I can't really show you. But suffice to say, it pretty much built on this type of action, this patent. So this design began as the Riverside. It was later called the Springfield number 315. It was introduced just before World War I, and then in 1923 as the Stevens number 330. And this number thing is important too. This is where things get a little bit interesting with the dating. I told you I'd tell you about how I dated it. So the Stevens number 330 in 1923, and then the Springfield number 311 was introduced in 1929, as well as, so now you might have a gun that looks like this and be like, well, where does mine fit in? Because there were hundreds of different trade names for these guns. I couldn't even begin. There'll be a whole new video on doing research on what those brand names, those trade names, trade branded guns were. But there's a lot of them. So you would just have to match up these actions. You would just have to look at these diagrams of how they were built internally exactly and match them up to tell what your trade branded gun actually was. The first 5100 action. So now I'm not saying model 5100. The 5100 type of action was the Stevens number 530. that replaced the number 330 in 1936. So this gun that you see here on the table really hit the market in 36. And it's an interesting part of the history when we get to the Tenite. There were some advertised in Tenite in 36, but we didn't really see 36 or 38. Around 38 is when they started to advertise the 10.8, but it really wasn't until 1940 that these things really hit the shelves, which is where I come up with the beginning date range for this exact model at 1940. So where were we? Sorry. So that was that. So the number 530 replaced the number 330 in 1936, and that was the first ones that had that 5100 embossed on them. In 1940, a 10-night stock version of the 530 double called the 530M was introduced going into World War II. And who knows what happened during World War II? You know, Stevens was busy making wartime stuff. So the chances that they were producing these things throughout all those years, who knows? But this is why no date codes, no nothing. Later on, we started getting date codes for Stevens, but not now. So after the war, Stevens Arms consolidated arms making operations in Chicopee Falls, and the same gun was shown in the catalog, 1947, as the Springfield number 311. So 1947 is our end date because that's when it switched in the catalogs from being called the 530 to being called the Springfield number 311. And then in 1948, and this was all because of Stevens consolidating how they were, coordinating everything in their factories. And with Stevens, in 1948, it was listed in the catalog, the 1948 catalog, as the Stevens Model 311. They changed everything. They followed everything because Savage went to model with everything. So they brought Stevens along with changing all of the names of everything to model. So it was the Model 311. In 1951, 10-night stocks were gone, and the walnut stock Stevens number 530 with the 5100 action remained until 1953. So there's a little bit of history just specifically on this model. Now, as far as Tenite goes, check out my video on the Noble Model 3322 because I have a lot of, I cover a lot of the history of Tenite. That gun was from the mid 50s. But I do have some new interesting stuff. Check this out. I found this online. There's this guy. Let me get his information out. This was really interesting. I found like the Tenite guru. So this guy, his name is Joel Van Zandt. And in May 2016, he had a display at the Ohio Gun Collectors Association show. And this guy, he has something online. Let me see if I have the website here. Oh, it's pretty long, the website, but it's ogca.com/tenite. You should be able to find this little article. It's titled Tenite Stocks and Forends by Joel Van Zandt, Ohio Gun Collectors Association. I'm sure if you put that into a Google search, you'll find it. And you'll have these pictures up there. This guy seems to be the Tenite Nut, and he proclaims that the earliest gun that was made with Tenite was the Stevens Model 530M. It was originally advertised in 38 with a 16 gauge side-by-side, but he doesn't have one of those and he's never seen one of those. And it seems like they might have started advertising it. Maybe they had some problems with putting it together. According to Mr. Van Zandt, Ads for the Stevens 530M in 16 gauge from 38 were the first Tenite featured guns, but to his knowledge, none exist until late 39 production for early 1940 release. And this Tenite is some interesting stuff. Take a look back at that other video. It starts off as a softwood tree, which is converted to wood pulp. There's wood in this stuff, right? A cellulosic plastic compound is added. It's then injection molded, which creates that swirling wood grain look. And check this out. I have some pictures here. So the stock, the receiver for the Tenite guns is actually different, because you see this raised lump right here that goes in here. This didn't exist on the wood stocks. They did this specifically for the Tenite guns because they thought they needed to add that rib in there for strength. So that makes the receivers actually different. So if you had a receiver like this and you used wood, there would be a gap. Or if you had a Tenite stock and you tried to put it on a regular receiver, it wouldn't fit unless you, I guess, ground this out or inletted this to fit, you know. So the Tenite stocks were also interesting because the butt plate is just like part of it, right? So how would you even connect it? What do you use? How does the bolt come through here to tighten it up? They made a cap back here that you would open up to be able to get in there to actually take it off. It's pretty interesting, right? So yeah, let's take a look at this guy. What do we got here? Stephen Arms Company, Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts, USA. We got a what do we got up here? Proof tested 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch chamber, selected forged steel. Yep, so we break it. No automatic ejectors. So with this guy, you literally gotta pull them out. Safety will automatically go on. And there it is, Stevens with the dog. That's the Stevens dog right on there. A lot of people that describe these go, I have a shotgun, it says Stevens and it has a dog. So these just pop off. And that's how easy they are to separate, to carry in a duffel. So this guy has doesn't have a mid bead, but it has a mid divot. Makes me think that something was either on there or it's just a coincidence that it got hit right in that spot. But it looks like maybe there was a mid bead on there. Don't know. See, we got some interesting markings, but no date codes. Everyone's going to tell me, like, no, look, there's a square with letters in it. With not these years. These years did not have that. These are just proof marks on here. Just proof marks. That didn't start until like 49. That here's the nice front bead on there. Gotta shine that up. Let's do that. I'll do that with you. Take a look at how it looks right now. And now I'll show you. This is the Stevens date chart right here. This is how you date them from 49 and up. So after the war, you know, they had time to get into that with dating, but until then. So just a quick little rub with my jewelry cloth. Let's see if that made a difference. Yeah, that woke it up a little bit now. A little bit. I don't know, for some reason, it never really shows. It definitely looks shinier to me looking at it with the naked eye, but on the camera that does not show up. And then to put it back together, see if I could do it at this weird angle without embarrassing myself. Boom. And we have to get that. Forgot about that. We have to get that in there. There we go. Nice. It's electro penciled down here with a serial number. And I think nice proof mark right there. I'm not sure if then you have to go with that serial number. I'm pretty sure when they did my when they did like the NICS check when I bought it, they just used that as a serial number. If there's a number on it, I think they're like better safe than sorry, but it did not come with a serial. That is, you find that sometimes when there's a gun that might have been in a jurisdiction that necessitates a serial number. So there's some places like, even though serial numbers weren't mandated until 1968, and then some places long guns still didn't even need a serial number after that. I don't think, I'm not 100% sure of all the rules banging around, but things were a little weird back then where there were some jurisdictions that were like, usually it would be cities, like it could be like Detroit's gun rules or New York City's gun rules or something like that, where you had to have a serial number. So they would actually literally have to electro pencil something on there. So that could be where you see that a lot, where that could, have come from. So shooting it, I took some video. I know you guys like to see the shooting video, but I purged a lot of stuff off my phone when I was sick, and I think that might have got wrapped up in it. I went to look for the video and I couldn't find it, but trust me, I wasn't going to show much of it anyway. I'll tell you why. I got a 6. I shot a 6 and an 8. I remember the 2 rounds, and I was in a very mellow mood, so it wasn't like I was shooting and I was angry and cursing and like mad that I was missing. It was just me there in the puller. It was like a freezing cold day, and it was really cool just to get the feel of how it was shooting. And I did one round with the full choke barrel, one round with the modified barrel. So 6 and an 8, that didn't really make a difference, a tremendous difference. I think I'd like to try it again. And instead of sighting down the middle of the barrel using the bead, I think I want to try it again when I'm using the right barrel. I want to sight down the right barrel. It's like I almost want to put like a bead on the tip of each barrel. I know that would look really funny, but I'm thinking that might have been what was causing all the misses. I'm thinking that if I just used the right barrel and just forgot that there was a left barrel and just sighted right down, maybe I would do better. I think I'm going to give it a try again. If I do again, might actually just do a video on trying that and seeing how it goes. So you'll have some shooting video, but trust me, it would have just been, what am I just going to edit in these 6 hits and be like, yeah, see, it did great, right? It would be a video of you watching me shoot a 6, which, if I had the footage, I definitely would be showing it and we'd be laughing about it. But that's a lot of misses, a 6. That's a lot. That's a lot of misses. So we have to try again. And it's definitely, it's a 30-inch barrel, but these things are not made for, they're not made for trap. This is really not what they're made for. I think these things are made for like just literally unleashing both barrels at the same time. It's something that's flying away, like some pheasant that takes flight right in front of you and scares the crap out of you in the weeds, and you just swing around and just blast the thing. And then your dog goes and brings it back to you. That seems kind of like the scenario where this thing would fit in. Or, like on the back, like right behind you in a pickup truck. That sounds about right too. And yeah, definitely good pickup truck guns. And ladies and gentlemen, do I have anything else? I don't think I have anything else. Wartime, Stevens, side by side. I love them. I really, I shot a 6 and an 8 with it, but there's something about it. I love it. I love the Tenite. Unbroken Tenite, by the way. I don't know what they're talking about with these things, saying they're brittle, they crack, they break, they're bad. It's like this stuff seems pretty durable, and it doesn't wear like wood. I mean, it'll scratch. You could crack it if you drop it. I mean, you could break it. It doesn't necessarily seem like it's more durable than wood. It just seems like it might wear better than wood. You know what I mean? Like if you etch checkering into it like this, it stays. It doesn't really wear, you know? It stays looking brand newish. I like this Tenite stuff. And that's definitely what brought me to this one, was I had to take it down off the shelf because I'm like, is that one that was the first Tenite gun, that Stevens gun? And I got it under that pretense and took it home, and I was right. I wanted to have the first Tenite gun, and now I do. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks for hanging in there with me. Thanks for keeping activity going on the channel while I was down there. There's one thing I can't do a video. One condition I can't do a video is if I can't talk. You all take care. Stay well. And I'll see you all soon.